So, you're thinking about moving to Australia, Sydney, to be specific. You might want to hear this before you book that flight, because the rent here might quietly drain you until you realize you're barely keeping your head above water. All right, let's take a little ride through what Sydney's really like if you're renting. And I'm not talking about the postcard version with the harbour bridge sparkling in the background. I'm talking about the version you get after the first few months, when the shine wears off and you start counting how many days you can go without touching your savings. Sydney's rental market right now, it's like playing a game of musical chairs. Except the chairs are $800 a week, and there's a crowd of people behind you ready to pounce the moment you blink. Why? It's a simple equation. Demand is massive. You've got locals who've thrown in the towel on buying because mortgage repayments are brutal. Then you've got thousands of new arrivals. International migrants, interstate movers, most of whom need rentals straight away. Everyone's chasing the same limited supply. And landlords? Well, they know it. Now, let's put some numbers to this. Let's say you land a strong Sydney salary, about $100,000 a year. Sounds like a win, right? After tax, you're sitting on roughly $6,600 a month. Feels comfortable until rent day. The average unit, is going for about $700 a week right now. That's about $3,000 a month. Just over 45% of your income gone before you've bought groceries, paid for transport, or even turned the lights on. Want a house instead? The average is around $775 a week, about $3,350 a month, which means you're now watching more than half your paycheck disappear into your landlord's pocket. Let's keep driving down this road. After rent, let's say you're left with $3,250. From that, take away around $600 to $700 for groceries if you're sensible, $300 for utilities, phone, and internet. Another $300 for transport, whether that's petrol, parking, or topping up your Opal card. Now you're sitting on roughly $1,900 for the month. That's supposed to cover insurance, clothes, emergencies, and the occasional thing that makes life worth living. Suddenly, that six-figure salary doesn't feel so rich. And this is if you're single or a couple. If you've got kids, well, add childcare, school costs, and the surprise expenses that somehow keep finding you. The numbers don't just get tight, they start to squeeze. Now, geography plays its part. Sydney's eastern suburbs, yes, those gorgeous oceanfront areas you've seen all over Instagram, are where rents go from expensive to eye-watering. Places like the north end of Bondi, you're paying for the view, the postcode, and the privilege of fighting for a parking spot the size of a shoebox. If you're looking for something more affordable, you'll be heading west. Further out, there are suburbs where rents dip under $500 a week, but the trade-off is a longer commute, higher transport costs, and more competition at inspections than you might expect. Speaking of inspections, imagine walking into an open home and finding 20 other people already there. Some are offering extra rent up front, some are dressed like they're going for a job interview, and you're standing there wondering if you should have brought a fruit basket for the agent. That's the atmosphere. Competitive, relentless, and a little bit absurd. Now, some good news, if you can call it that. Rent growth has slowed. We've gone from scary double-digit increases to about 2% growth in the past year. But before you start celebrating, remember, that's because rents have already hit levels so high most people simply can't pay more. We've reached a ceiling, not because the market's kind, because tenants are tapped out. And where are the renters? In some parts of Sydney, renting isn't the exception, it's the norm. There are suburbs where 2/3 of residents are tenants. And these aren't just students or short-term visitors, they're professionals, families, long-term locals. Renting here isn't a phase for many, it's a way of life. But here's the kicker. Experts still expect rents to keep climbing next year. Not dramatically, but enough to make that rent day sigh a little heavier. And I can already hear some people saying, well, if you can't afford the rent, just leave. Yeah, I did, pack my bags, move to Adelaide, and honestly, best decision I've made in years. Still renting, but the pressure's nowhere near Sydney levels. I've got no plans to buy a house. I like the freedom of moving to different areas, trying different neighborhoods, different layouts. I travel light, I'm frugal, I don't own much, and that suits me just fine. To me, a mortgage is a bit like marriage. You're committing to one place for decades, and that's a whole other conversation I'll save for another drive. So if you're watching this from overseas, dreaming of Sydney's beaches and sunny days, I'm not here to crush your dream. Sydney is incredible. The coastline alone will ruin you for beaches anywhere else. But you've got to come with your eyes open. Have savings, have a plan, be ready to compromise on location, on space, maybe even on how many houseplants you can realistically fit in a shared living room. Because the truth is, this city will give you moments you'll never forget. But it'll also test your patience, your budget, and your willingness to accept that comfortable here often means just getting by. So, is it worth it? That depends on what you're willing to trade. Just remember, Sydney's beauty is free to look at, but living here, that comes at a price. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next drive.